Congressman Raja Krishnamoorthi, welcome to ITV Gold. I hope you're doing well today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course, we have to have you. You do represent the 8th Congressional District of Illinois. So just starting off this interview, I have to ask you, we're at the election eve. How is the momentum in your district and how are people feeling? What are you focused on?
Well, I think that people are feeling good. I'm feeling good. I'm going for my third term on November 3rd. As I like to say, I'm trying to go 3 for 3 on November 3. And so I think it's going well. I look forward to joining the new Congress. And, hopefully tomorrow is a turning point in a positive way for the entire country.
You know, Congressman, if I was to ask you, what are some issues you think are at stake for the audience to know more, what would you say?
I think there are a few issues that are at stake. One is, are we ready to hire somebody to be president and the majority party to finally kill the coronavirus? We have to end this pandemic and the health crisis associated with it. The second is, are we ready to hire somebody who's going to help repair the damage to our economy and make sure that we come out of this better than we were before? One where we have inclusive growth and inclusive economic growth across the board. And then the third question is, do we want to unify as a country or do we want to continue to divide? I think we should unify. And that's why I think that Joe Biden, as well as the Democratic Party, are poised for good things tomorrow night.
You know, there are about 96 million votes that have already been cast. What does that show, according to you, when you see such large numbers of turnout before Election Day?
It's pretty astounding. Well, first of all, I think there's going to be record turnout on Election Day. And then secondly, I think that greater turnout helps Democrats because there are a lot of constituencies that don't vote their numbers. And so young people, people of color, and others, to the extent that they're turning out, are people that usually tend to vote blue, so to speak.
Right, for sure. You know, Congressman, I would like to now discuss certain issues that truly impact the South Asian community, and I would love to know what your perspective on this is. Starting off, I would like to discuss the economic and healthcare ramifications of COVID-19, especially on your district. How are you going to help the most vulnerable people at this point?
Well, I think the first thing is that we have to get another stimulus deal done in Washington, meaning we have to put more money into the economy since whole sectors of the economy are shutting down in an effort to stem the pandemic. I'm very hopeful that we will come to terms on a deal right after the election or early in 2021 because so many individuals, families, and businesses need the help now.
Definitely. You know, just discussing even more of the issues, Congressman, you know, immigration is obviously at the forefront of this election. It really impacts the South Asian diaspora as well. What will the future of immigration look like if, say, Biden and Harris ticket wins today?
Well, I think the future of immigration looks bright if the Biden-Harris ticket wins. I just don't think that this president feels comfortable with immigrants. He's turned away immigrants and in some ways practice xenophobia. And I think that's very, very bad given that the DNA of America has always involved welcoming immigrants and assimilating immigrants. And so a Biden-Harris ticket will encourage legal immigration, especially from South Asia and India and so forth. Unfortunately, the Trump administration has done anything but. It has turned away some of the best and the brightest and the hardest working people from around the world.
Definitely. What about the healthcare crisis that we're in? The healthcare system is overwhelmed across the nation. What does the Congress need to do and what does the administration need to do according to you?
Well, I think that with regard to the healthcare crisis, there are two things that we have to do at least. One is we have to finally rush resources from the federal government to the states and local governments to mitigate the harm from the coronavirus pandemic. That means we have to help them with additional testing. We have to help them with additional PPE, personal protective equipment. We have to help them with extra ventilators. And we have to make sure that they can adequately handle the health crisis at hand. The second thing that we have to do is we have to make sure that a safe and effective vaccine is developed so we can finally get past this pandemic. If we don't have a safe and effective vaccine, people won't take it, and it won't be effective in providing people with the immunity necessary to return to normal.
Definitely. While discussing healthcare, I have to ask you about women's reproductive rights, because we have seen that also at the forefront in this election. My question to you would be, if Roe v. Wade is questioned, what will the U.S. Congress do? What will you do?
Well, I think that Roe v. Wade is already under attack. We have to just make sure that, at least within Congress, if something suddenly disruptive happens in the Supreme Court, that we potentially codify the rights, meaning we pass laws that provide the same rights that people enjoyed with Roe v. Wade. We may have to do that anyway, because in my humble opinion, women's reproductive rights should not be under constant assault. It goes to the idea of whether we believe men and women should be equal. And unfortunately, too often, I think that Roe v. Wade and attacks on choice are really attacks on equality and gender equality.
Yes, definitely. And here's to hoping there's a lot done for these issues. Just moving on with this, Congressman, there's a huge issue of racial unrest in the entire nation right now. We've seen Black Lives Matter movement go across the nation. I would like to know how you've been looking at this racial unrest, and how do we truly solve this problem?
Well, first of all, we need a president who doesn't make the problem worse, and that the person in charge actually talks about this in a way that is inviting for both sides to, all sides of this issue to be able to engage in a civil, respectful manner. The tone is set at the top. So I'm hoping that if and when Joe Biden becomes president, we can actually deal with this in a productive manner, and we can also have law enforcement reform, and we can talk about all the other issues surrounding this that really impede our progress.
Definitely. I would like to know how you've looked at these two campaign trails, Congressman. President Trump has gone across the country hosting rallies. Former Vice President Joe Biden and Senator Harris have done it in a different manner, where they're using drive-ins as a means to reach out. How are you looking at this?
Well, I think that it in part illustrates the way that they would govern the country, right? Because on the one hand, the drive-in rallies, to me, signal that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris want to assemble people, but want to do it in a safe manner so nobody gets hurt. On the other hand, you look at President Trump's rallies where nobody's wearing a mask, everybody is right up close next to each other, there's no social distancing, and you see so many cases coming out of these super spreader events, and he himself got sick. And so if he can't take care of himself, and he has no regard for the people at his events getting sick, why should he care about the rest of us? I don't think he does. And that's why he doesn't deserve to stay in office.
We are also hearing news about a potential, flashback or lashback from community after the election day. How would you handle that in your district?
I think that we need peace and calm to be the order of the day. We have to make sure that in every city and state that city leaders working with community leaders and law enforcement keep the streets calm, allow people to exercise their First Amendment rights. However, we don't want any disorder, certainly not any violence, and certainly not any property damage. And so let's conduct ourselves in a dignified manner. That's absolutely crucial.
Definitely. And finally, Congressman, you are a proud South Asian American. We are a South Asian network. I would love for you to address the community on importance of voting and perhaps the importance of how we play a pivotal role in this election.
Well, it turns out that there are 500,000 South Asian voters in the battleground states.
Wow.
And the reason why that matters is because each of those battleground states will be decided by, thousands of votes, not millions of votes. And so South Asian voters could provide the difference, whether it's in Wisconsin or Michigan or Pennsylvania or Florida or North Carolina. South Asian voters need to vote, and that is paramount. And so today, make a plan, make sure that your friends, family, and loved ones make a plan, and get out there and vote. This is our duty. We have to do it.
Congressman Raja Krishnamoorthi, I truly thank you for your time here, and
Thank
please
you.
keep on continuing to make us all proud.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Of course. Have a good one.
Okay, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.